everyone, welcome back to Gillian at Mystic Healing Therapist. So, how are you all doing? I've got my chicks in the background. Look how much they've grown. Miracle of nature. I thought I'd film here so you could have a look at them. Anyway, how's everyone doing? So, I thought today what I'd talk about is how do we give our power away? So, when I trained as a psychotherapist, we learnt about power dynamics and power dynamics in relationships and such. But where I'm coming from is more how do we give our power away, our spiritual power, our God-given power really, and how this has been slowly over time eroded, and nothing more so with what we can see in the news right now with free speech, etc. Need I say any more? So one thing that strikes me is the willingness that people have to give up the power. So I know that people on here aren't celebrating celebrities, you know, I'm sure most of you are beyond that, you couldn't care less, I would imagine. But, you know, a lot of people in our society, they kind of look up to these people and they really put them on a pedestal. And by doing that, they are giving their own personal power away to these figures of authority. Now, I've seen this. People transferred. They might have outgrown the celebrity type of culture, but they have now transferred that sort of guru power over to spiritual leaders or spiritual teachers. And I just ask you to just take a step back from that and observe it. You know, if people put me on a pedestal, for example, I will say to them or urge, I don't want anyone to put me on a pedestal. I want you to direct that energy to Creator. You know, there's people that do this, this job to get power or get energy off people. And there's some people that do this job to give energy to people. So, you know, work out, who are you following? Are they taking energy off the people they inverted commas serving, or are they giving energy to people? And I would just urge you to contemplate that. And you know, if you're willing to, oh well, I don't know what to think, I'll see what Gillian thinks, or I'll see what Susie thinks, or I'll see what Jackie thinks, you know, just have a think about that. Do you want to be giving up your power to external people, or do you want to be finding your power from within? And, you know, this takes me on to say to everybody on here that has stood in your power this last 4 years, hats off to you, respect, you know. And when I say that, I mean things like when they'd got the mask mandates, to each one of you that was feeling shaky, that was feeling a bit nervous, but you still walked into that shop without a mask on, hats off to you, you know. And anyone that speaks out and dares to put the head above the parapet in any way, even if it is going to a supermarket and asking them to open a checkout because you don't want the self-checkouts. Anyone that just isn't complying the way into dictatorship, hats off to you. So that's another thing about power, you know, while ever we consent to these power structures from top down that are trying to control us and trying to erode our personal freedoms, while ever we comply, the noose gets tighter and tighter and tighter. So it really is, folks, a time to really think about what kind of future do you want? Do you want to be living in communism? Because, you know, anybody that half opens their eyes must be able to see that that's where we're heading, unless we push back and say no on a 3D level. But then last week I had somebody say to me, Gillian, if it's all a done deal, why do we need to bother saying no? You know, because I know it's a done deal. I know that God wins. I know that we are heading for a much better place. I've got no doubts about it. And someone said to me, well, if you're that certain, then why are you bothering, you know, doing what I do, or why should we bother if it's all done and dusted? Why? Well, I think it is ultimately done and dusted, and it is ultimately in the bag, so to speak. But it's up to us how we get there. So I've used this analogy before. If I wanted to go to London, for example, from here, I've got a choice of the M1, the A1, the M42. I can choose many different routes to London. I could even drive up to Scotland and then back down to London if I wanted to. So my point with when they say, well, why are you bothering? What's the point? It's in the bag. I want to bring around this paradigm shift as soon as possible and as painlessly as possible. And, you know, that's where I'm coming from. I don't want us to go on a difficult timeline because we've consented to something, then it takes a long time to turn it back round. I want us to be on the highest, best timeline. Therefore, I will push back and I will say no, and I won't consent, and I'll do everything I can within my power to do that. So, you know, there's always these little acts of not wearing a mask, of getting a checkout opened, of paying cash, of not consenting to things, you know, making a laugh of it, making a joke out of monkeypox, standing up for the pensioners of Britain that are being absolutely pillaged by the government. You know, speak up, stand up, and then we will get the higher timeline. You know, like I say, I'm talking about a peaceful way of saying no, but we need to get the message out. You know, I've used this analogy before. 2021, Tesco's, which is like a Walmart type shop if you're watching this not in the UK, a supermarket, they put out an advert with Father Christmas showing a vaccine pass on it. Now, a lot of people stood up against that and really made a stand and emailed the chief executive. They made a stand in the shops, and so they retracted that because it was public opinion. Now, the same store is going cashless, so it's up to us to say no. It's up to us to email the chief executive. It's up to us to, you know, put a word in when we go to the shop, if we go to the shop. And it's things like that. We can do this. So it really is a time. And, you know, yes, it is done and dusted. We've got no worries about that. But I want to see the highest timeline, and I want the least amount of suffering possible. And I know if we consent to communism, it's a much darker route to get our freedoms back. If it's harder to get your freedoms back than it is to not comply in the first place, if that makes sense. So don't comply into it, and then we won't have to fight for them back. If you don't say no now, it's going to be a much harder route. So just have a think about how you can stand in your power every day, be it with your choices around shopping, with your choices around, you know, who are you giving your power to? Who are you giving your power away to? A sort of, instead of giving it away to the pop stars and the celebrities, are you now giving it away to people on YouTube? You know, I'm not saying don't honour their message, but I am saying don't give your power away to them, and don't just blindly follow them. Think for yourselves. All right, I'll leave you with this. Look how beautiful those little angels are, aren't they lovely? They'll soon be going away from the mama in a couple of weeks. Anyway, I hope that cheers you up, look. Thank you for being here, everyone. Sending you lots of love. Bye for now.